Jesus Christ. His name echoes through history. He is a central figure to billions around the world. His teachings have inspired countless acts of love, compassion, and forgiveness. But was Jesus a real person? Or is he a myth, a legend passed down through generations? The evidence points overwhelmingly to the historical reality of Jesus Christ. We find this evidence in the Bible and in archaeology. Unlike the question, does God exist? Relatively few people question whether Jesus Christ existed. Most agree that Jesus was a historical figure who lived in Israel around 2,000 years ago. The real debate centers on Jesus' full identity. While many major religions acknowledge Jesus as a prophet, a good teacher, or a godly man, the Bible reveals that Jesus was infinitely more than any of these. The Gospels are the heart of the New Testament. They provide detailed accounts of Jesus' life, teachings, death, and resurrection. Matthew, Mark, and John were likely eyewitnesses to Jesus' ministry. Luke, a meticulous historian, consulted eyewitnesses. These accounts are not mythical tales, they are grounded in historical detail. They describe real places and real events. The Gospels portray Jesus as a real person. He interacted with real people. He experienced emotions like joy, sorrow, and anger. He taught, healed, and ultimately gave his life for humanity. The Gospels are compelling evidence for the historical Jesus. So, who did Jesus claim to be? Who does the Bible say he is? First, he is God in the flesh. In John chapter 10, verse 30, Jesus declared, "I and the Father are one." At first glance, this might not seem like a claim to divinity. However, the reaction of the Jews tells a different story. They tried to stone him for blasphemy because you, a mere man, claim to be God. Stated in John chapter 10, verse 33. The Jews clearly understood Jesus' statement as a claim to be God. In the verses that follow, Jesus does not correct them or clarify his statement. He does not say, "I did not claim to be God." When Jesus said, "I and the Father are one," he was indeed asserting his equality with God. The Bible is a reliable source, but it's not the only source. Archaeology provides compelling evidence for the historical Jesus. Archaeologists have unearthed ancient cities. These cities are mentioned in the Gospels. They have found artifacts. Archaeology brings the Gospels to life. These artifacts confirm biblical accounts. Take, for instance, the Pool of Bethesda. John chapter 5 describes this pool. It was a place of healing. John's description of the pool is detailed. He describes 5 porticos. These were covered walkways. Archaeologists found these porticos. He was writing about a real place. It demonstrates that John was not writing from imagination. Another example is the city of Capernaum. This city was a central location in Jesus' ministry. Capernaum was a bustling town on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. It was a vibrant hub of activity, with fishermen bringing in their daily catch and traders exchanging goods from distant lands. It was also a place where Jesus performed many miracles. He healed the sick, gave sight to the blind, and even raised the dead, drawing large crowds who came to witness his divine acts. Archaeologists have excavated Capernaum. They have found a synagogue. This synagogue dates back to the time of Jesus. Archaeological discoveries provide tangible evidence. They support the historical backdrop of Jesus' life. They show us that the Gospels are not set in a mythical land. They are grounded in the reality of first-century Palestine. The evidence for Jesus' existence is not limited to Christian sources. Several non-Christian historians also mention Jesus. These historians lived in the 1st and 2nd centuries. They wrote about Jesus within a century of his life. They confirm that Jesus was a real person. These non-Christian sources provide independent confirmation. They show that Jesus was not a figment of Christian imagination. He was a real person. He was known and talked about even by those outside the Christian faith. Tacitus and Josephus. Roman and Jewish historians speak. Cornelius Tacitus was a Roman historian. He is considered one of the most accurate historians of the ancient world. His meticulous approach to documenting events has earned him a reputation for reliability and precision. In his work, Annals, Tacitus mentions Christus, from whom Christians derive their name. He writes about the punishment Christus suffered under Pontius Pilate. This reference is one of the earliest non-Christian accounts of Jesus' execution. This confirms the biblical account of Jesus' crucifixion. Tacitus's account provides a crucial external validation of the events described in the New Testament, bridging the gap between Roman historical records and Christian scripture. Flavius Josephus was a Jewish historian. His works are among the most important sources for understanding the history of the Jewish people during the 1st century. He wrote about Jesus in his work, Antiquities of the Jews. This text is a comprehensive history of the Jewish people, and Josephus's mention of Jesus adds a significant Jewish perspective to the historical narrative. Josephus refers to Jesus as a wise man and a worker of miracles. He acknowledges the impact Jesus had on the people of his time, describing him as a teacher who attracted a large following. He confirms that Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate. This corroboration from a Jewish historian provides an additional layer of historical evidence supporting the New Testament accounts. Josephus's account, though brief, is significant. It offers a non-Christian perspective on the life and death of Jesus, contributing to a more rounded historical understanding. It comes from a Jewish historian. This external validation from a source outside the Christian tradition is invaluable for historians and scholars. It is independent of the Gospels. The writings of Tacitus and Josephus together provide a more comprehensive picture of the historical Jesus, enriching our understanding of this pivotal figure in history. The evidence for the historical Jesus is overwhelming. Scholars from various disciplines have examined the available data and have reached a consensus that Jesus of Nazareth was indeed a historical figure. The Gospels provide detailed, eyewitness accounts of his life, teachings, death, and resurrection. These texts, written by those who either knew Jesus personally or were close to his immediate followers, offer a vivid portrayal of his ministry and the impact he had on those around him. The epistles corroborate these accounts. Letters written by early Christian leaders, such as Paul, Peter, and James, further affirm the events described in the Gospels, providing additional layers of historical validation. They present Jesus as a real person who lived in history. These writings are not just theological reflections, but also contain historical references that align with other known historical facts of the time. Archaeological discoveries confirm the historical backdrop of the Gospels. Excavations in regions like Galilee and Jerusalem have unearthed artifacts and structures that match the descriptions found in the biblical texts. They demonstrate that the Gospels are not set in a mythical land. Instead, they are deeply rooted in the geographical and cultural context of first-century Palestine, providing a tangible connection to the past. They are grounded in the reality of first-century Palestine. The social, political, and religious dynamics described in the Gospels align with what historians know about that era, further solidifying their credibility. Non-Christian historians, writing within a century of Jesus' life, also mention him. Figures such as Tacitus, Josephus, and Pliny the Younger provide external attestations to Jesus' existence and the early Christian movement. They confirm his existence and some of the key details of his life and death. These independent sources, though not always favorable to Christianity, nonetheless acknowledge Jesus as a significant historical figure. The evidence from both the Bible and archaeology converges to paint a clear picture, a picture that is both compelling and convincing. Jesus Christ was a real person. His life and deeds are not merely the stuff of legend, but are anchored in the annals of history. His life, teachings, death, and resurrection are rooted in history. These events have been meticulously documented and studied, providing a robust foundation for the Christian faith. He is not a myth or a legend. The historical evidence supports the reality of his existence and the profound impact he had on the world. The evidence for Jesus Christ is so overwhelming that it compels acceptance by proof, which leaves absolutely no room for doubt.